So who'll be next? And who'll be lucky?
All right, please welcome our next panelist to the stage.
How's everyone doing today? So here we are, council room, 10 years, right? How many have been here since the beginning? You know, it's actually kind of nice to see that it's not everybody's hand. It shows that it's grown. New people are here. How many is your first year? And how many are here because they cannot wait to meet the guests that we're going to bring on stage? I have to admit, I actually told her that you guys are super enthusiastic, and I don't know if that cuts it. How many of you... Was that you that did that? Okay, I just want to... So once again, how many of you excited to see the guests that we're about to bring out here? Ladies and gentlemen, it is an extreme pleasure and privilege to introduce Miss Sophie Aldred.
Hi, everybody. Great to see you, and also for those people who are not with us, but who are on the live stream. Hello, say hello. Turn around, everybody. Say hello. Hello.
So this is going to be interactive. So if you have questions, after I get through my really hard-biting questions to Miss Aldred, that will, you know, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows, right? Huh? Look what I did. Line up at the microphone, and we'll definitely make sure that your questions are asked. Your questions are the important questions. The more you line up, the less you have to listen to me. So, and that's always a good thing. So, you know, and I have to apologize because we didn't really work out which side. Like, I just took this side. I hope you're okay with that.
Because this is actually my best side.
I was using my...
I'm very happy.
I was using my psychic mediumship abilities, and I knew that was what's going on. So,
perfect.
All right, let's get to business here, okay? The really important question that I have to ask was, how was your nature trail hike today?
Yes. Well, Tommy Knight and I went for
Name
a walk.
dropper.
Yeah, I know. And we had a great time. We got our snowshoes. I've never worn snowshoes, so I was very excited. Yeah, we don't have enough snow in England really to go snow walking. So I've never walked with poles. So we set off and we saw some turkeys and some beautiful birds, and then we saw tracks in the snow. We saw a deer in the woods, and we were chatting. We walked and we walked and we walked and we walked and we walked, and we saw what must have been a moose print as well, because it was big, which is great. And I tried to walk backwards at one point, and my snowshoes fell over, and that was quite funny. I wish we'd taken a photo. Anyway, we walked and I thought Tommy knew where he was going. Big mistake. So we got to this place, and he said, "Where do you think we should go? Because this isn't where I came yesterday." I was like, "Oh," and I said, "Well, how long have we been walking?" And we looked, and we thought, have we been walking for 1 hour or 2 hours? And it was 2 hours. And anyway, so I said, "Well, I've got a feeling it's this way." So we turned right, and I said, "Oh, look, there's the hotel." And it was like, way. I said, "What's the time?" And we went, "Oh, we're not going to make it back in time for my photographs." So luckily, his phone was working. So mine had run out of battery by this time. So we phoned our dear friend Anton, and he came and rescued us. He's our hero. But we did have a great time. It was fantastic. And what was lovely was that we got to know each other, you know, because I've not met Tommy before, and he's not met me before, obviously. So we had a chance to get to know each other. What a nice guy. Really lovely. It was great.
So did they have to helicopter in to get you out, or?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure.
It works.
Yeah, that's in my world. Rule number one about living in Minnesota is don't go outside. I prefer to stay inside, and I cry when snow falls. So
there must be a version of, you know, that Noel Coward song that goes, "Mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun." It would be mad women and English women go out in the cold and the snow, or something like that. Something like that.
No. Well, and I'm glad you got to experience it. It's actually very nice at the Nature Center across the street.
It's really great. I can recommend it. Just don't walk for 2 hours.
And charge your phone.
Up a river thinking it's a lake.
So you know, I saw you in Doctor Who this year, or last year, a new episode. How cool. I mean, just, and you and I, because we were going to work together on something, and we had this conversation last summer, or whenever it was that we just around the time announced. I mean, as a fan, how exciting it was, and just, it's even more than like, oh, Ace is returning. It's more of, us fans, I think it's like, cool, Sophie Aldred got work. Well, I mean, it's beyond that, obviously, but, because you're very...
yeah, that was great.
Yeah. But the idea is like it's all like how exciting that you are now in the new Who universe.
The strange thing is I keep kind of forgetting. So people will say to me, "Oh, so have you been in anything that I would have seen?" And I say, "Well, years ago," because I'm so used to saying it for the last 30-something years. I say, "Years ago, I was in Doctor Who, and I was in, I played the companion, and and I do that, and then I suddenly go, oh, and I still am in it. I was in it just recently, but I sort of always forget that bit. It's really funny."
Would you mind sharing the story about how your family found out that you're returning?
Oh yes. So we couldn't say anything, obviously, until the trailer had gone out, me and Janet. You have to sign these non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, for everything now. And of course, we didn't want the fans to know beforehand, because it's such a great surprise. So we were being very, very careful about it. And my husband knew, because he was there when I took the phone call. The boys, who are kind of young men now, really, they kind of knew, but they didn't really want me to tell them about it. But nobody else in my family knew. So at Easter, when the trailer came out, we were staying at my dad and stepmom's house. And I said to my stepmom, "Is it okay if we have our Easter Sunday meal early, so that, because the trailer of this thing that I was in, that I'm going to be in, is on at about 10 to 8 in the evening?" And she said, yes, that would be okay. So anyway, we're all sitting around eating the meal. We finished the first course, and I look at my watch. I say, right, the trailer's on. I have to go up. So we all trooped up to where their TV is. We all sat round. We put the TV on. We watched the last lovely scene of Jodie and Mandip, the Sea Devils episode. And then the trailer came on. And it was, 30 seconds, was it? Something like that. And it was almost like, finished. And there was complete silence. And my stepmom said, "Oh, is that it?" Because I think she was kind of expecting something a bit more. And I said, "Yes, that's it." And she said, there was another silence, and then she said, "Pudding, anyone?" And I looked down at my phone and it had literally exploded. Twitter had gone completely mad. And so I turned the ringer off because it was going bing, 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 bing. And my dad and stepmom were going, what's that? Because they don't really do social media. They're in their 80s, you know. And during the course of the rest of the evening, they gradually saw what it was and what it meant to people. And I said, look, I'm so sorry, I've got to keep an eye on this. And they were asking about it, and they got so excited. It was great. They got more and more excited as they realized what it was. It was fantastic.
I just, you know, obviously you knew Ace coming back would have been a big deal. Everyone, was it even bigger in terms of the response than you thought?
Yes. Both Janet and I were completely bowled over by the response, because we knew that it would be a good response, but we didn't realize just how much people cared about it, you know, and the people were going, you know, I'm screaming, I'm crying, it just caused this. And I was texting Chris Chibnall going, oh my goodness, Twitter's gone mad. And Russell T Davies they'd both texted me beforehand, you know, but he was going, oh, amazing. I mean, he'd seen it already, but he's like that, Russell, and he's great. So kind of affirmative and supportive.
How cool. I mean, that's not really a question, is it? It's more of a statement. How cool. Yeah. I mean, it's just that whole thing. I mean, what do you think it is that elicit that response? Because I'm going to be honest, and I watched this with a number of my friends, and we all had that response. You know, I'm a grown man, and I'm tearing up seeing that you all are back in it. That and I tried to dissect it in my own mind. It's like part of it too is like that the show is respecting its past, but I mean, it's more to it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that's a really good point, actually, because I think Chris Chibnall and Stephen Moffat, well, really the show it's nodded a bit to its past. Obviously, Russell was, you know, he had the spin-offs and stuff like that, but really everything had been forward-thinking. And then suddenly, you've got Chris, who I think it's fair to say the fans didn't take to his writing as much as you know, that they could have done or whatever. But he was getting some stick, and then suddenly he comes up with this incredible episode which delivers to the fans exactly what they've wanted. And in fact, it was funny because when we were filming and when we were doing the bits with the doctors, that we were all saying, this is what the 50th should have been like. Totally. You know, this is what we were looking for the 50th anniversary, which didn't happen. And
it feels very, it just feels amazing that not only, you know, you all appeared in it, but it was not only for Jodie's final story, not only for Chibnall's final story, but it's the centenary episode. This is what the BBC is saying. This is Doctor Who at the BBC 100th anniversary, and you're in it.
I thought that was brilliant that the BBC actually chose Doctor Who to be the sort of flagship episode for itself, because considering how much they hadn't liked it when Sylvester and I were doing it, to have us both in it again. And the best thing about it was that back in the day, that they'd put it on, the schedule had been set on a Wednesday night, which was when our big soap opera, Coronation Street, was on ITV. So they knew that we did really well against it. Mm-hmm. But of course, we'd never hoped to beat Coronation Street in the ratings. And when it went out, when Power of the Doctor went out, guess what was on ITV? Coronation Street. Oh. Guess which program got more ratings?
I was just going to ask about vindication. You know, like, there's some kind of vindication a little bit. I mean, it's nice because I mean, how many of us watched their era when it was first run here, right?
Some people probably weren't even born.
Well, and
Let's not talk about them.
Isn't that the best part, that there is so many people here that haven't? But I mean, the idea is, I mean, I don't know about all of you, but your time on Doctor Who with Sylvester McCoy is different than anything else during that series run. It was fresh, it was amazing, and it is a stepping stone to what we ended up getting when the series returned in terms of tone, in terms of exploration of not the Doctor, but the companion's role, and looking deeper than we ever seen before. I think that's one of the things that appeals to me most about the era, is that it helped pave the way for where the series ended up going. It took many years, but it got there.
It's so extraordinary, isn't it? I had the great pleasure last weekend of being with, it was an event called Mythmakers Live with Keith Barnfather, who's been doing the Mythmakers interviews for years and years and years and years. And I've started working a lot with him because he's a very, very old friend. And he asked me to interview now, to join Real Time basically as an interviewer. And I've really enjoyed that. And we managed to get together Ben Aronovich, who wrote Remembrance of the Daleks and Battlefield, Ian Briggs, who wrote Dragonfire, my first story, and Curse of Fenric, which was my favourite story, which kind of really explained a lot of Ace's past. Kate Eastiel, who was the production secretary for the first 2 years when I was there. And I hadn't seen her since, 35 years. And then Andrew Cartmel rang him at the last moment and said, can I come along just to see everybody? So it was a reunion, and when we had Simon Williams, who was in Remembrance of the Daleks. So it was just brilliant to be together and to sort of remember what it was like in those days. And Andrew, what Andrew did was extraordinary, because he invented really the system of the writer's room. So Ben, when I went to Ben's panel, actually, because I was so interested in what he had to say, and he was 21 when he wrote Remembrance of the Daleks. I'd never realised that. It was his first ever script, and he said he had this sort of arrogance and folly of youth, where he just dashed it. He said it wrote itself, really, Remembrance of the Daleks, once they'd come up with the basic ideas. But then, of course, they were all instrumental, all those writers, in writing each other's stories. So they all were contributing to each other, which I thought was so cool in those days to have that. So, yeah, really interesting.
I forgot. I did see that you did that last week, and I apologize. I should have asked, would you prefer interviewing me than me interviewing you, since that's what you've been... I'm kidding. They don't always know. That's the thing. I'd like to talk a little bit more about Power of the Doctor in terms, because it's so fascinating how all the time... How was it pitched to you?
Well, it was amazing. I know exactly. I was sitting on a sofa in our conservatory, and my agent called, and she said, "Oh, hello, Sophie." She said, "Andy Pryor has been doing an availability check on you." Andy Pryor, the casting director for Doctor Who, and we all know what that means. And I was like, well, I ended the phone call and I burst into tears, basically. Wow. It was really very emotional. And my husband said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "Andy Pryor's been asking for my availability, and we all know what that means." And then she rang again. She said, Chris Chibnall wants to have a Zoom meeting with you to talk about the episode. So we did. And it was great, because he and I have been meaning to meet each other for ages and ages. And then the pandemic happened, and and what with one thing and another. So the first time we met was on Zoom. And he said, would you do me the great honour of being in the centenary episode of Doctor Who? And I just said wild horses wouldn't stop me from being in it. And he said, "So what do you think Ace is like now? What does she look like? What do you think she does?" And I said, "Well, I think we're very lucky to have had the trailer that Pete McTighe did for the season 26 box set. I think that's exactly what Ace would be doing now. And then also the book that Mike Tucker and Steve Cole and I wrote, I'd like to use that as a reference as well. I think she'd still be wearing Doc Martens. she'd probably be a bit kind of lonely in a way, which is brilliant because it was touched on in that final scene of The Power of the Doctor, where there's this group of people who can't talk about their experiences, who've never really been able to say anything, and there they are, they've had this extraordinary life. And I thought to myself, yeah, what would that do to you if you'd had that experience and then you'd gone, and it would colour the rest of your life. So we had a really good talk about that. And then the costume designer rang and said, what do you think Ace would be wearing? And I said, well, I thought that the trailer for the box set was great. I think she'd be, if she's the CEO of a charitable earth, then she's going to be wearing a nice suit, but Doc Martens, please. And I said to Chris, I said, oh, I've still got the jacket, by the way, in my cupboard. Do you want that? He said, he went all fanboy, basically. So I took the jacket with me when I went for my costume fitting, and I hadn't seen a script at this stage. And it was very nice because they were getting cars for us. So I got a car driven down to Cardiff to the Moat Studios, where I'd never been.
Fancy?
Yeah. No, not at all. No, it was. It's kind of a bit like on an industrial estate. Well, it's on the docks, but not the nice docks. You know, sort of like very industrial area. This is funny. I arrived at the reception area. This reminded me of the old BBC, and the guy behind the counter said, you know, he sort of looked up. And I said, Sophie Aldred, I've come for a costume fitting for Doctor Who. He said, who are you meeting? And I said, I'm not sure. He said, I can't let you in and if I don't know who you're meeting. And I said, right, well, I'm not sure what to do then. He said, well, I don't know. I can't let you in. And it was like, you know, well, it was so weird. And then he saw somebody who said, hey, you know, can you go and find so-and-so? Eventually I got in and met Ray Holman, who's the fantastic costume designer. And I took my jacket out of the bag and he said, could we borrow it for a bit to copy it? I said, why are you copying it? Will you just use this one? He said, are you sure? So I said, yeah, you might have to sew the badges on because they're always falling off. And I lose loads of them, but yeah, if you want to sort of, you know, kind of clean it a bit, so he had the jacket, and it was on a sort of special hanger. And then afterwards, he said to me, people kept coming into the ward and saying, "Could I just have a look at that jacket?" It's so funny. I didn't realise. And then I hadn't seen a script, and I said, because Chris had said to me on the Zoom, he said, "We've got lots to get into this episode. We've got the Cybermen, the Master, the Daleks. We've got, it's Jodie's last episode." He said, "So I'm not quite sure how much will be in it." And I have to say, I left the call feeling a little bit disappointed, thinking, right. It's going to be a cameo. I don't want to be a cameo. Anyway, I sort of said to Ray, it's a shame that I'm only in a couple of scenes. And he said, really? He said, that's not the script I've seen. I said, oh. He said, well, what about the bit where you parachute down and the Cybermen and you parachute into the Tardis? I thought, yes.
That is amazing. What stage? Well, the first question I was actually going to ask: did Chibnall try on the jacket at all?
No, he didn't ask.
I thought that there'd be people lining up to. Maybe they did it when you weren't around.
Maybe they did. Yeah, because he was only there actually for the day when, because he lives miles away from Cardiff, so he came up for the day that the doctors were there. And that was really nice. And
in the original Zoom call you had with Chris Chibnall, did he talk about returning doctors at that point, or when did you find out that Sylvester was going to be in it?
No, that was when I got the script, and it was I just thought, yes, amazing.
what a
amazing.
surprise. So Sylvester didn't reach out to you, tell you ahead of time that it was happening? He kept quiet?
We were being very cagey with each other. It was funny because we didn't quite know how much we could say, because I didn't know whether he'd been asked yet. So, I couldn't say anything. We all had to kind of dance. The only person who I did call straight away was Janet, and it was great because we were just like, well, what do you think it's going to be like? And I don't know. We were kind of, speculating for a long time.
I could just imagine, you got all trying to maneuver around it. What are you up to? I don't know. What are you up to? Sort of thing.
Yes.
Now, I'd like to open this up to anybody who has questions. Please line up behind the microphone because Miss Aldred would be happy to answer all of your questions.
I definitely will. Don't be shy.
Well, hello. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. What you got?
What was it like playing Ace against Sylvester again? Was it just like old hat, just slipping back into old shoes?
Oh, it was so brilliant. Because we've been obviously doing the big finishes together, and we're always, when we record, we're kind of next to each other. So, although not in the last couple of years, of course, because we've been remotely recording, but it was very familiar. And the day that I was talking about, in fact, I did my bits in that scene separately. So I was in this cave in the Brecon Beacons, sort of climbing up this thing, and Sylvester couldn't have made it up there. And the director, said, "Can you manage to get up there? Because that would be great." I said, "Yes, absolutely." So I did my bits, and it was very intimate actually, because there was just the cameraman and the camera, and then there was Barnaby Edwards, who was inside the Dalek, because we'd been doing some Dalek stuff just before. I asked if he could read in Sylvester's lines for me, and he was really delighted. So it was very quiet and very intimate. But then they said, they suddenly realized, oh, that's a good idea if somebody comes and reads in the lines. And so they asked me, would I mind coming down again to read in the lines with Sylvester? Yay! So I went down, and it was lovely because I wasn't in costume that day, but he was in his costume and just standing opposite, like we are now, just looking at him. And he said the same. It was just so great looking into each other's eyes and doing that. Was really lovely.
First of all, there should have been an announcement before the episode aired that you do need Kleenex. You need, because I was just thinking about that scene between your doctor and Ace, and there's a lot of the outside world Doctor Who and stuff that I love the show, but there's a lot of stuff you forget about and stuff, and within a couple of lines, it feels like you two encapsulated that relationship and not realize, I'm, sorry that, we fell out. And it was just, it was so emotional to get that, because it's like, it happens to us in real life. And it's like, we saw your character grow. It was such an amazing experience.
That's so great. Yeah. And when we were doing that scene, it was great because, apparently there were loads of people who'd come down from, they were all watching the monitors, and just before the episode aired, I texted Chris and I said, really looking forward to seeing it aired, and he said it shows actually how worried he was about it, because he said, well, whatever people are going to say about it, and he said something like, we lived our days, or whatever that quote is, And then he said, oh, I haven't sent you these. And he sent me a couple of photographs of me and Sylvester taken. He'd been standing there, and he'd taken these photographs on the monitor of us with the green screen behind us. And it was very lovely.
Oh, that's great. That is great. Mr. Ellis, hello.
Hi. What was it like in the ending scene of The Power of the Doctor to be there with all the other, well, especially what it was like to work with William Russell?
Yeah, that scene was so special. I think I'd gone down there, and Bonnie, because I'd rung Bonnie as soon as I knew that she'd said yes, and she said, "Oh, I'm so excited." And then we'd met up the night before to have a cup of tea in the bar and things. And then I saw William in the bar with his daughter, and I went over to him and, said hi, because I hadn't seen him since the 50th anniversary, and it was clear to me then that he was quite muddled. He didn't quite know where he was, And anyway, the following day, we all set off for this location, which was a sort of little sort of church hall type building, village hall. And we got in there, and it was just amazing to all be together. And it was really wonderful. But we'd had to wait around quite a lot. So it was a sunny day, and we were all in our trailers waiting to be taken there. And there was Katie, me, Bonnie, Gemma and Janet, and we just sat there sort of talking to each other and eating cake in the sun, and it was really lovely. And then we got to the venue, and then of course John Bishop and Bradley was there, and Jodie and Mandip hadn't seen Bradley because I'd been in the cave with him. They hadn't really seen him properly, so they were all teasing each other, and that was fun. And then we all sat round in the chairs, and they put quite a lot of dry ice in the room. And at one point I was looking around and I thought, wow, this is a bit like a dream. One of those weird dreams that you have sometimes. It somehow didn't seem quite real. And then somebody brought William Russell a cup of tea, and he spilt it. And then he was in a bit of a fluster, and he got a bit muddled up with what was the script and what had just happened. And so he kept saying, when it came to his line, he kept saying, "I'm so sorry for all the mess." And it was really sweet. And in the end, John Bishop was incredible. I think his mum had dementia or something like that. So he just very quietly said to him, "Just say after me." And he gave him the line, and then but of course it was funny because William was repeating it with John Bishop's Liverpool accent. So, anyway, they eventually got the line, but it was a beautiful, beautiful. Jodie came to, although she wasn't in the scene. She wasn't in, but she came because she wanted to see everybody, and it was lovely. We just all wanted it to go on forever.
I think we did too. I mean, honestly, that was a dream. When you say it was a dream, I think all of us watching it was a dream too. Another moment just with William Russell. I mean, that's another pass the Kleenex. It just really goes to show what these characters mean to us. Now, a bit of a conspiracy theory question, though.
I know what you're going to say.
Oh, really?
The chair.
The chair.
Now, the official line and what was in the script was that there was a laptop or a tablet on the chair, and then they were going to have various other companions on there. But let's say it's for Liz.
Yes. I think a lot of us wanted that to be that way. That's beautiful. Mr. Savicle.
Hi. Sophie, you had mentioned taking some inspiration from the novel you had written at Childhood's End in terms of your appearance in Power of the Doctor. As part of that, in the novel, Ace meets the 13th Doctor in a different way. At any point, did you feel like having a kind of an alternate scene in Power of the Doctor kind of changed the novel, or was it just yet another alternate version of Ace?
I think it's just another strike of the anvil if you've read the novel. It's Ace has so many timelines, which I really like. I like the idea that she's, there's the TV timeline, there's the Big Finish timeline, there's the timeline with Hex, there's the timeline with Rain, there's the timeline. So I think we can safely assume that this was a particular timeline, and that the novel one is valid as well.
Great, thank you.
That's a great question.
Thank you.
That's a great question. it's one of those things that a lot of Doctor Who companions, they stopped existing for a while after they left the show, and only when this whole other world of books and stuff started in the 90s that they were resurrected, so to speak, back into. No, but Ace, really, since her debut, has been in media continuously. And that's pretty amazing, and that you've been able to have an active, is it fair to say, influence on some of that to a certain extent? I mean, especially since you've written some of your own stuff about her and stuff. I mean, that has to be really satisfying to be able to have, like, really, you've raised this character.
It's quite incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know anyone else who's had that opportunity, really, to be constantly reinventing this character and associated with the same character for so long. I guess the only other thing, well, I mean, there are people who, like The Archers, which is a soap on Radio 4 in England, you've got people there who've been playing the same part for years and years and years and years. But you're right, because people have taken her off in all sorts of different directions, and I was tidying out some CDs and books the other day, and we were moving all my CDs from this cabin we've got in the garden, and I was looking through them, and I found the Adventures in Space and Time recordings that we did not long after the show was cancelled with a company called BBV with Bill Baggs. Yep. And yeah, I mean, he rang us very quickly after the series had been cancelled and said, "Hey, do you fancy doing some audio adventures?" We thought, yeah, why not? Might as well. And we did one written by some unknown person called Mark Gatiss, whoever that is. I remember being in somebody's basement recording that with Mark there, and yeah, it's extraordinary, really, to have this long association with the same character.
Now, I'm going to take you a little bit off track here a little bit. Do you think it's worse to spill tea or wine?
Wine.
Bill here.
That question, not in any way directed towards me.
Hey, Bill.
Greg's room might need a little bit of a cleanup.
Okay, no. Now we have to quickly because that sounds horrible. He spilled wine.
Visited Greg's room.
He spilled wine all over the place, ruined it basically, and we probably have to pay a big fee. Go ahead.
That's right. Let me know what my share is.
$300.
All the best people spill wine. My husband spilled red wine all over me last week, and yeah,
nobody's safe.
And I was a bit upset because I had this very old quilt cover that my mum made me when I was 11, and this new jumper that I was wearing. So, but luckily, all the stains came out. So I wish the same for you.
Well, the good news is that he spilt it all over the books that he's never sold of his. So.
Oh, they might sell now. Special.
Now they're special.
Yeah, who wants a wine-soaked book? Anyone?
Who doesn't want a wine soaked?
Well, yeah.
All right.
Sophie, I just want to say thank you for coming. It's always great to have you here.
Oh, it's lovely to be here.
I just want to say, so Russell has talked about this notion of a Whoniverse, and there's a lot of speculation about the idea of having spin-off things ongoing in the Whoniverse, if you will. I would never dream of asking you if you've been approached about such things.
I wish.
Well, what would you say?
Oh, what do you think I'd say? I'm crossing my fingers because there was that line in that scene, wasn't there, where Kate says, "I may need you to do some work for me," or whatever that line was. And I did think at the time, aye, okay. And I think Chris was in touch with Russell in those last few, because Russell had definitely seen it when it was aired, but I think he may have known at that time that he was going to take over and that he was, So I wouldn't wonder if they'd got their heads together. But that's all completely my theory, and I would absolutely love it. It would be great.
We did have the Sarah Jane Adventures. I can imagine everybody here would be excited about the Ace adventure.
Well, and let's face it. I've got K9, haven't I? Because
Oh, yeah.
That's right, you do.
Yeah, because in the thing that we did
You're
in
all
lockdown.
set up.
So yeah, let's have the Ace adventures.
Well, and absolutely, I didn't mean to cut off your applause. Keep going. Well, and that's the thing. When Sarah Jane Adventures was happening, and I'm sure it was just us fans just hoping. I kept hearing that Ace coming back in some way was always on the cards.
Yeah, she was going to be the next companion to come back. I didn't know any of this until I was interviewed for Doctor Who magazine by Benjamin Cook, who's a very good friend of Russell T Davis's. And he said he'd rung him the night before and said, "Oh, I'm seeing Sophie tomorrow." And he said, "Oh, yes, she was going to be the next," because the ratings always went up, apparently, when the old companions, like when Katie had done her episode. And so, yeah, he'd had this vague idea that the first scene would be that you'd see a sports car, which is where I got the idea in the book, a sports car drive up to Sarah Jane's house. You'd see a kind of picture of the door opening of the car, and then these high heels would go clacking down her pathway. And then you'd see from Sarah Jane's point of view, her door opening, and it would be Ace in a kind of a suit and looking very smart. And there she was. And he said, but don't worry, because she'd soon get her Doc Martens back on and be running around and saving the universe and chucking Nitro 9 around.
You know, I think, and I'm going to get to your question in 1 second. I just wanted to quickly follow up on that. One thing that I've always loved about, like, what Russell had done, and I think Chibnall too, the way he brought it back, is the idea that the Doctor always made the companions better people. When they were done with him, that they were better people doing good, not necessarily for the universe, for other mankind, humans, whatever, that they were always, that they were better than when they came to him in some way. Whereas like the New Adventures, you know, it seemed like that everyone had gruesome deaths and stuff, and it just like, because they could, right? Because they could. But here, it was a really nice lesson that the power of the Doctor, if you will, is that the Doctor can make everything better, and the people who are around him and around her just grow.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because I was just thinking when you were saying that my last line in remembrance of the Daleks, if you think about that, was Ace says, we did good, didn't we, Doctor? Or we did good, didn't we? And he says, you know, we always do, or something like that. So, I mean, that's Ace's impulse is to do good and to help people, and yeah, that she has left him. I mean, we don't know what happened, of course, but whatever it was, she has gone and set up this charity, and she's doing something good for humanity, yeah.
Now, I haven't seen that one. No, I'm just kidding. I did see. Remember the thank you for laughing at all. Okay, what's your question, please?
Sorry.
It's more of a cough than a question. But your reaction?
Sorry. Just nervous. So I don't know if this is just a wild fan theory or something. I don't always know how to tell what's a crazy fan theory versus a semi-authenticated fan theory. I haven't watched enough of your episodes to know, but sorry. I heard a rumor that Ace might be bi. What do you think of that?
Well, I think what's great about Ace is that so many people can identify with her. Male, female, no gender, whatever gender fluid, bi, any sexuality. I think if it makes a difference to you, then great.
Right.
You know, I wouldn't like to say that Ace is any one thing or another, any gender, any sexuality, because you can then take what you need from the character of Ace.
Now, I just want to say, first of all, that was a great question, and there is absolutely no need to be nervous, because it was
really
amazing.
good question.
And it brings me to a point of thinking, Doctor Who really is a safe place. You know, as a show, yeah, you have your danger and whatnot, but it is a safe place for people to be who they want, who express themselves, and also the idea of taking it outside the series, you know, and you do so many conventions, I mean, you obviously see it, is the cosplay of taking, for example, doctors' costumes and reinventing them and reimagining them and doing all sorts of things with that. I mean, it's just, it feels like creativity is endless, and that's what, once again, the power of the Doctor, that's what it brings, and everyone can be who they need to be.
I think it's fantastic that you can all feel safe in this space, and that you know, whoever you are, whoever you want to be, whoever, you know, that you can do that. And I was actually, which convention was it? I can't remember whether it was Long Island or Chicago now, but there was a couple of people who came to me at the end of a question thing and said that the ghost-like moment here, the male costume that Ace wears is a really important moment for the trans community. And I'd never even thought of that. And I thought, yeah, great, good, that's fantastic, you know, really, really great. So that people are using the sort of inspiration of Doctor Who in many, many areas of wealth to inform their own lives. And I think that's brilliant.
And it's really has to be very warming to be able to be that if they know that you are that like they're in it with you, so to speak. And I bring up, and I'll keep this as a very quick story. For the paranormal stuff I do, I interviewed a big name in the field. We did what we were going to do, a live streaming thing. And we did a Q&A afterwards where we had people come up, and the woman who he kind of knew, she had a big decision that she wanted to let him know, and that was that she came out bi, and that he was the first person that she told, and that was such a big moment for her, and the idea of the impact that you make on people's lives. I mean,
it's a huge privilege. I have there's a fan in England who years ago I met her. She was very unhappy, but got a lot of inspiration from Ace. And then gradually the realization dawned, oh, hang on a minute. And then anyway, fast forward a few years, and I was so moved when they came to my table and said, I would like you to be the witness of my name change for my for me being trans. And I can't think of a more privileged position to be in, actually, that people would think that they wanted me to be involved in such an important life decision. It's really fantastic.
It's beautiful. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to say thank you, because about 10 years ago at Convergence, I was also very nervous asking a very similar question, because I had heard that the writer of Survival, Rona Munro, had written Ace as queer. So thank you always for being so lovely about that. But quick cosplay question. Can you clarify what Doc Martens you were wearing in Power of the Doctor?
Oh, yes. So I think they've been discontinued now, but we should have bought loads of pairs up, shouldn't we? They were this shape, and they've got roses on the side. Yay! That's right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, if you two are the same shoe size, she can try them on.
Although, because of the walk, I've got terrible blisters on the back of my feet now.
Oh, that's right.
So I was actually thinking of turning up with my socks.
Now you can tell people you went to the source for the information. Now, now Jason's here, and Jason, how do you feel that you almost had an incident? You almost lost 2 guests today. Do you need maybe some kind of tracking device on them? A chip implanted?
All of our future guests. We're gonna put. Yeah, we're gonna chip everyone.
Good.
Ankle tags.
When you were talking about the last scene, where all the companions are sitting around and saying, well, you know, we couldn't really like we all had this shared experience that we can't share with other people. I mean, that's kind of what you all have in real life as well.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that you're all, I mean, you can tell everyone about it as you're doing right now, but you all have this experience that is unique to you and Janet and Katie and Liz and everyone, having been these characters that are so dear to everyone and everything. And I just wondered if you could comment about that.
Yeah, that's
About
brilliant,
this.
Jason. Yeah, really good, because that's so true, because nobody quite gets it.
No.
Outside, like other actors, I mean, I think you probably get it more than anyone, but for us, it's a real... When I first got the part, I think John Nathan Turner said to me, "Welcome to the family." And I thought, what? But it's true. It's like being in a special family where you've got your in-jokes and you've got your different relationships with people, but you all share this common, strange thing, yeah.
It's like a kind of a little private group in a sense, like, and that it lasts all these years because now the folks in the new series, they join into that, and it's becoming more integrated, and it's great.
Well, it was lovely. I was with Janet and Gemma at an event a few weeks ago, and Gemma was saying, she got a bit nervous, and I was saying, look. And anyway, we just realized the three of us were like a gang, and she thoroughly enjoyed it. It was great. Really, really, really good.
I mean, everyone's so warm and welcoming. It's not just because we're in Minnesota either, right? I mean, that's where it's all about. So we have about just over 5 minutes left, and so if anyone has a quick question, come on up. Otherwise, one thing that we have not touched on, I don't believe we touched on, is the origins story. And could you explain a little bit about that, please?
Yes, well, my agent got in touch with me and said, would you be interested, Penguin Random House, I think because At Childhood's End had done so well, would you be interested in writing an origin story for Ace, a short story? And I thought, yeah, that would be great, actually. And funnily enough, I knew exactly where it was going to be, of course, because it was going to be in Perivale. And it was all so vivid to me that, well, Ben Aronovich said it wrote itself. It really almost did write itself. And the only thing was I was thinking about the character at the end. I won't spoil it, but anyway, I was wondering whether to bring the master into it. And then I tried that, and it didn't quite work, so I sort of had to go back and rework it. But I was so pleased at how it came out. And then Katie did one too for Joe Grant. And so for anybody who doesn't know, this is a new book that's come out quite recently called Origin Stories. And it's short stories about companions and their youth before they met the Doctor. And we could just write whatever we wanted. So I was really pleased with how it came out, actually.
Any thoughts on writing anything else? Maybe anything outside of the Doctor Who universe?
Well, funnily enough, somebody's just asked me to write a kind of young adult or sort of teen spooky story. So I'm kind of thinking about, well, have I got time, A, and B, what would I write about? Because, of course, writing Ace is easy because I know exactly what she's going to say, what she's going to do, But yeah, so I'm thinking about that at the moment.
You should. You're like, okay, now that he said so, I'll do it. But no, I just think that...
No, it's encouraging.
I think you definitely need to. Hello again.
What was it like working with David Tennant? Did you guys talk about Doctor Who when you worked together?
Yeah, David is just so great. We first worked together on the big Finnish story, Colditz, before he was the Doctor. And he was great. He was really easy to work with and fun. And then I worked with him on Trifu Tom doing this, the animation. And it's not fair. He got to do his voice over here, but they they got a different Trifu Tom to me. It's not fair. But that was lovely, and he talked to me a lot about Doctor Who in the breaks and things. And then we more recently did the story together for Big Finish. It was a shame in a way because we did it in lockdown. So I was in my little airing cupboard, linen closet, I think you call them over here, with my microphone. And David was in some attic somewhere. Somebody else was, I think John Coleshaw was under a duvet somewhere. It was quite funny. But it's always, always, always lovely to work with him. I went to see him. He's been in the West End in a play called Good, which is a very chilling play. He's brilliant, of course, because he's brilliant in everything. And I went with an American fan who I've known for years who loves theatre, and when he comes over, we always go and see something. There was a little group of us. And the bizarre thing was that when I came out of the theatre, well, they wanted to get autographs because that's what he does. So he said, hey, I've got a good idea. Why don't you line up as well? Because there was a sort of barrier thing and you had to line up. So I thought, okay. Anyway, while I was standing there waiting for David, these people who stand at stage doors and get autographs, they came up to me with some photographs of me and the Power of the Doctor and said, could you sign these? And I said, how did you know I was going to be here? It's so bizarre. There's no way they could have known. It was so Anyway, David came out and he started signing up the line and he was going along like this. Yeah, oh, thank you very much. Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah, thank you very much. And I went, oh, hi, David. My name's Sophie. I'm a huge fan of yours. He said, oh, thank you very much. Whoa! What are you doing here?
That's great. That is great. Is your question quick? We have a minute.
It's very quick, yes. In Silver Nemesis, you were one of the first people to don a fez in Doctor Who. Would you ever wear one again?
Yes!
And why aren't you not wearing one now?
Well, true.
It's true. That's true. You were the first to wear a fez. Isn't that great?
Thank you for remembering that, because people say, oh, Matt. So I said, I was the first.
That is fantastic. Everyone, please give a round of applause to Miss Aldred.
Thank you.
What a great interview.
Thank you, people online.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you very much. Next up, the burlesque dancers.